The stars were quiet that night, their bright dots scattered across the vastness of space. But the peace of the Milky Way was about to be shattered. An enormous fleet of ships, gleaming and cold, emerged from the shadows, their sleek surfaces reflecting the distant glow of nearby stars. The ships were unlike anything Earth had seen before, massive, with strange symbols etched into their hulls. They were part of the Galactic Empire, a group of powerful civilizations that ruled large sections of the galaxy. Humanity had always been cautious about the idea of space exploration, but when the Empire's fleet arrived near Earth's orbit, there was no doubt about their intentions. A message, loud and clear, came through every channel and broadcast across the globe. Surrender your planet. Your world is now under the Empire's control. Do not resist. The people of Earth held their breath. This was the first time anyone from another galaxy had made contact. Was this the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, or the end? The leaders of Earth gathered in a massive meeting hall, looking at each other with nervous uncertainty. The Galactic Empire's demands were simple. Earth would kneel to their will or face destruction. But humanity had never been a species to back down easily. Even after centuries of war and hardship, they had built something that no empire could destroy: hope. Earth's diplomats, led by Ambassador Lydia Marsh, were chosen to communicate with the Empire's representatives. She stood tall, a symbol of human resilience, facing the challenge with the calmness that had come to define her career. Ambassador Marsh was a seasoned diplomat, known for her ability to negotiate difficult situations. However, this was something new. The Empire had never encountered a race like humanity. The message from Earth was clear: we do not bow to anyone. We will fight to protect our freedom. As she stood before the Empire's grand holographic projection, she spoke with conviction. We welcome you to our world, but we will not surrender to your demands. Humanity does not yield. You have made a mistake in thinking we will simply accept your rule. The Empire's representative, a tall being with dark, alien eyes, looked down upon her. He didn't seem to be bothered by her words. Instead, he smiled with a coldness that sent shivers down the spine of everyone watching. You misunderstand, he said in a voice that echoed through the chamber. This is not a request. This is an order. Your planet is too primitive. You will serve the Empire, or you will perish. This is your final warning. The humans watching the exchange could feel the tension in the air. Every person on Earth was watching, waiting for what would come next. Ambassador Marsh remained calm, her voice unwavering. We warned you, she replied. Humans never back down. If you want this planet, you will have to fight for it. The representative's eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he gave a signal, and the holographic projection flickered for a moment. So be it, he said, turning to end the communication. We shall see how long your resolve lasts. With that, the transmission cut off, leaving the Earth's leaders in stunned silence. Back on Earth, the people were uncertain. The Galactic Empire was an unknown force, their ships filled with advanced technology, their weapons far beyond anything humanity had ever known. Many feared the worst, but there were others who stood tall, driven by the defiance that ran deep in human history. You heard them, said Captain James Foster, one of the leaders of Earth's military. They think we are weak. They think we're just another planet to conquer. But we will show them what humanity is made of. As the word spread across the globe, the people of Earth began to rally. Nations that had once been divided now stood together, united in a common cause. The challenge was massive, but humanity had something the Empire did not: the will to survive. Across the planet, families huddled together, knowing that their lives were about to change forever. The governments of Earth immediately began preparations. Weapons were readied, technology advanced, and the people steeled themselves for what was to come. Even the scientists, engineers, and innovators, who had always worked on peaceful projects, shifted their focus. Humanity was facing an enemy that would not be satisfied with simple negotiations. They had to be ready for war, but this wasn't going to be just any war. This was a war for their freedom, their planet, and their very survival. In space, the Empire's fleet loomed ever closer. The world held its breath, knowing that this would be the moment that would define humanity's future. The Galactic Empire might have been a giant in the galaxy, but they had just made one mistake, their first mistake. They had underestimated Earth, and that would be the one thing they would come to regret. "We warned them," whispered Ambassador Marsh, as she looked out over the chaos unfolding on Earth's streets. "And now they'll see just what humans can do when pushed too far." The fight for Earth had just begun. The moment the Galactic Empire's ships entered Earth's orbit, a heavy silence fell over the planet. The air seemed thick with tension. No one knew exactly what to expect, but one thing was clear. Earth was now facing a force unlike any they had encountered before. Their message had been heard loud and clear, but how could humanity stand up to such overwhelming power? In the days that followed, the world's leaders convened in a series of urgent meetings. The Galactic Empire had promised a swift, decisive victory. Their fleet had immense firepower, and their ships were capable of devastating entire cities. But there was one thing the Empire hadn't accounted for: the sheer creativity of humanity. Across the globe, ordinary people came together to help. The tech geniuses, the engineers, the soldiers, and the scientists all contributed to the cause. The government's first priority was to strengthen Earth's defenses, but what they lacked in size and advanced technology, they more than made up for in resourcefulness and determination. On the ground, human engineers worked tirelessly in hidden underground bunkers. They took the technology they had, adapting it and improving upon it. Experimental weapons, once too dangerous to use, were repurposed for defense. Earth's military forces, while not as advanced as the Empire's, had a secret weapon the invaders couldn't predict: human ingenuity. Captain James Foster, a former military strategist, was now leading a team of elite soldiers tasked with countering the Empire's attacks. He had spent most of his life studying warfare, but nothing could prepare him for the magnitude of this invasion. Still, he had one belief that kept him going: the human spirit could overcome any challenge. "Prepare the cities for the worst," he ordered his team. "But don't give up on surprises. We need to make them doubt everything they thought they knew about us." Back in the research labs, scientists worked around the clock. They studied the remnants of the Empire's transmissions, looking for any weaknesses in their communication systems or technology. Dr. Emily Hayes, a leading scientist, discovered something peculiar. The Empire's ships, despite their overwhelming power, relied heavily on a centralized command system. That meant, if humans could somehow disrupt their communications, they could cause confusion within the Empire's ranks. It was a long shot, but it was their best option. Dr. Hayes' team began working on a signal jamming device capable of interfering with the Empire's fleet. Meanwhile, military units were tasked with protecting the major cities and preparing for the worst-case scenario: direct combat with the Empire's ground forces. In the skies above Earth, the Empire's ships waited, confident that their advanced weaponry would crush any resistance. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back. Their soldiers were disciplined and powerful, but their technology was no match for the creativity that humanity could bring to the battlefield. One afternoon, the first wave of Empire drones arrived to scout Earth's defenses. The humans, however, were ready. As the drones entered Earth's atmosphere, a sudden electromagnetic pulse, EMP, fired from a hidden base. The drones, which had been designed to rely on precise communications with their mothership, instantly malfunctioned. They dropped from the sky, unable to function. The Empire was caught off guard. They had not expected such a response from a primitive species. Their commanders ordered a retreat to regroup, but it was clear now that the human resistance was far from helpless. Captain Foster and his team watched the sky as the last of the malfunctioning drones plummeted to the ground. A cheer went up from the soldiers around him. "We did it," Foster said with a proud smile. This is just the beginning. But the battle wasn't over yet. The Empire, realizing that their initial plan had failed, began to escalate their attacks. They sent larger, more powerful ships and brought in elite ground troops. But Earth's defenses had also improved. New weapons designed by the best minds on the planet were ready to face the Empire's onslaught. While the Empire's soldiers were formidable, humanity's forces had something the Empire could never replicate: unity. In cities across the world, people came together to protect their homes. Children, the elderly, and families joined in the effort, doing whatever they could to help. Some helped build defenses, while others supported the military by gathering supplies. Earth's spirit was unbreakable. Everyone had a role to play in this fight. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the resistance forces executed their strategy perfectly. They set traps, creating false targets to mislead the Empire's forces. The Empire's soldiers, used to overwhelming strength, found themselves outwitted by the humans at every turn. "We're learning their moves," said Foster as he observed the enemy's tactics through a series of surveillance screens. "They can't predict us, and they don't know how to deal with it." Back in the Empire's command ship, the lead officer, an arrogant commander, gritted his teeth in frustration. The humans had managed to turn the tables on them in just a matter of days. What was supposed to be an easy conquest had become a battle for survival. The Empire's commanders began to worry. They had not accounted for the unpredictability of Earth's inhabitants. The Empire had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, learn, and innovate. And that, as the Empire would soon find out, was a force more powerful than any weapon in their arsenal. "We warned them," Foster muttered under his breath as he watched the Empire's ships from his command center. "And now they'll see what happens when you push humans too far." The days after Earth's unexpected success against the Galactic Empire were tense. Both sides were adjusting, regrouping, and preparing for the next phase of this strange and unpredictable war. The Empire, with its vast resources and high-tech weaponry, was still confident that they would eventually crush humanity. However, they underestimated the one thing that could tip the scales: the human will to survive and adapt. The first ground assault came swiftly. The Empire deployed its elite soldiers, armored, trained, and ruthless. These soldiers were unlike anything Earth had faced before. They moved with precision and overwhelming force, like a well-oiled machine. Their goal was clear: to force humanity into submission by taking control of Earth's major cities. Their landing ships descended from the sky, huge and imposing, ready to disembark their troops. But Earth had already anticipated this move. In the ruins of the cities that once stood as symbols of Earth's strength, new defenses had been built. Not towering walls or massive weaponry, but something far more dangerous to the Empire: guerrilla warfare. The people of Earth, once scattered by years of division, were now united under one cause. Everywhere, from the jungles of South America to the icy plains of Siberia, humans fought with everything they had. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were regular people turned warriors. Captain James Foster watched from the command center as the Empire's forces began their descent. His team had already set up ambushes, hidden within the dense forests near the coast. "We can't win this battle by fighting them head-on," Foster said, speaking to his team. "We need to make them doubt their power." As the Empire's troops began landing, they were met with the surprise of their lives. Humans had anticipated the movement of the invaders with uncanny accuracy, using everything from satellite imagery to intercepted communication. As the Empire's soldiers marched through the dense forests, they triggered a series of traps, explosions that sent shockwaves through the ground, creating confusion and panic among their ranks. The Empire's soldiers had trained for combat, but they were not prepared for the unpredictability of human tactics. The soldiers had expected a traditional defense, a large fortified position that they could overwhelm. Instead, they found themselves fighting against an invisible enemy, hidden in the shadows, striking from unexpected places. The humans didn't wait for the Empire to make the first move. They used everything they could find as weapons: rocks, improvised explosives, and even old, out-of-date military gear. Every skirmish was like a chess game, humans using their knowledge of the terrain and their quick thinking to keep the Empire's forces off balance. Meanwhile, in the heart of one of the largest cities, Dr. Emily Hayes and her team were putting the finishing touches on their most ambitious project yet. The signal jamming device, which had already proven successful in disrupting the Empire's drones, was now being adapted to jam communications on a much larger scale. If they could block the Empire's ability to coordinate, they would have a chance to break their military advantage. "We need to make sure this works," Dr. Hayes said, adjusting the device. "If we can sever their command from the front lines, the soldiers will be lost without their orders. They'll be vulnerable." Back on the battlefield, the human resistance launched their first large-scale offensive. It wasn't about winning the war in one blow. It was about showing the Empire that humanity was not afraid. The Empire's soldiers were still highly trained, but their sense of invincibility was starting to crack. In every battle, the humans were learning more about the Empire's tactics, and every victory, no matter how small, made the invaders doubt their superiority. In one crucial battle, a group of human fighters, led by Captain Foster, launched a daring strike on an Empire command center deep within the forest. The Empire had expected a fight on their terms, open, controlled, and predictable. But the humans had other plans. They attacked under the cover of night, using the dense trees to their advantage. As the Empire's forces scrambled to mount a defense, the humans launched a surprise attack from the rear, catching them off guard. "What did I tell you?" Foster said with a grin, as he watched the Empire's soldiers retreat. "They think they can predict us, but we keep changing the game." The humans were no longer just defending their planet. They were attacking back in ways the Empire couldn't foresee. The Empire's command was furious. They had expected humanity to fold under pressure, but instead, they had encountered a force that would not yield. The defeat at the hands of a relatively small group of humans in the forest was a humiliation that shook their confidence. The invasion was supposed to be easy, quick, and decisive, but instead, it was becoming a war of attrition. "The humans are not what we expected," the Empire's lead commander admitted in a private briefing. "They are unpredictable. Their tactics are unlike anything we've ever encountered." The humans, despite their limited resources, had managed to shift the balance of power. And as the Empire realized that they couldn't defeat humanity with sheer force alone, the cracks in their strategy began to show. "Keep fighting. Keep adapting," Captain Foster ordered his team. "We'll make them wish they had never set foot on our world." It was clear now. This war wasn't going to be won by the Empire's technology or brute strength. It would be won by humanity's ability to think, adapt, and fight for their survival. And with each victory, no matter how small, the humans were proving that the Empire had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated Earth's greatest strength, its people. The war was far from over, but humanity's resolve had been set. And as they prepared for the next phase of battle, one thing was certain: the Galactic Empire would never forget the day they faced the unexpected force of human determination. The war had changed. What had begun as a defensive struggle for survival had now evolved into an unexpected offensive by humanity. The Empire, still powerful and vast, was beginning to realize that their plans were not unfolding as they had predicted. Humanity's cleverness, its drive, and its willingness to fight for their home had caused cracks to form in the Empire's once unshakable confidence. After the success in the forest battle, Earth's resistance forces felt a surge of hope. Captain James Foster, who had led the charge in the forests, knew that the Empire's losses, though small in comparison to their overwhelming strength, were starting to mount. They had underestimated humanity before, but now they had made a serious mistake. They had not expected humans to be capable of organizing, adapting, and most importantly, fighting back. "We've got their attention," Foster said, as he looked over a map of the Empire's movements in a command room deep underground. "We've got to make sure we don't let up now. We need to keep hitting them where it hurts." The human resistance had grown in numbers. People from all walks of life, from tech experts to farmers, from former soldiers to engineers, had joined the effort. They weren't just fighting. They were building new technologies, creating weapons, and adapting old equipment in ways the Empire couldn't have imagined. Earth's ingenuity was proving to be a game-changer. Meanwhile, Dr. Emily Hayes and her team had successfully completed the development of the new signal jamming technology. This new device was far more powerful than the first, capable of disrupting the Empire's communications across vast distances. It could cripple their ability to coordinate attacks and move troops, creating chaos in their ranks. But using it would require a bold step: getting close enough to the heart of the Empire's command structure to deploy it. Dr. Hayes and her team were aware of the risks. The Empire's forces were not just advanced in technology. They were ruthless in protecting their command centers. The humans would have to infiltrate one of the most heavily guarded sites in the Empire's invasion fleet. It was a dangerous mission, but if successful, it could change the tide of the war. Back in the field, the human resistance forces were preparing for their next big strike. Foster had received word that the Empire had begun moving its heavy artillery and reinforcements toward Earth's major cities. The time for small strikes was over. Humanity needed to make a stand, to show the Empire that they were no longer on the defensive. As night fell, Foster and his team gathered their troops for the upcoming mission. They would strike at the heart of the Empire's supply line, a convoy of Empire transports carrying critical supplies to their front lines. These transports were heavily guarded, but destroying them would cripple the Empire's ability to sustain its invasion forces. If they succeeded, it would send a powerful message that Earth would not be intimidated. Foster knew the risks, but the stakes were too high. "This isn't just about us," he told his soldiers as they gathered around the campfire before the mission. "This is about everyone back home. Our families. Our future. We fight for Earth tonight." The plan was simple. They would infiltrate the convoy's route, sabotage their defenses, and strike when the Empire least expected it. The humans didn't have the same advanced weapons as the Empire, but they had something better: resourcefulness. They knew the terrain, they knew the enemy, and they were willing to do whatever it took to win. At the same time, Dr. Hayes and her team were preparing to execute their mission. They were going to deploy the signal jamming device close to one of the Empire's central command ships, where the main fleet was coordinating their efforts. The goal was to disrupt their communications long enough to cause confusion in the ranks and slow their ability to plan attacks. "This is it," Dr. Hayes said, looking at the device one last time. "If we do this right, we can turn the tide in our favor. But we'll have to move fast and stay hidden. The Empire won't give us a second chance." As both missions began, the tension on Earth was palpable. People everywhere were watching, hoping for a breakthrough. The humans had already defied expectations, but this next step was crucial. If they could pull off these strikes, they might finally be able to gain the upper hand. The convoy strike began at dawn. Foster and his team moved like shadows through the underbrush, silently approaching the Empire's convoy. They planted explosive charges on the transport ships and waited. As the convoy came into view, the humans held their breath. Everything depended on the timing. When the signal came, Foster's team struck. Explosions rang out as the convoy was hit from all sides. The Empire's soldiers scrambled, but they were caught off guard. Within minutes, the convoy was in chaos, and the transports were burning. It was a resounding success, a massive blow to the Empire's supply lines. Meanwhile, Dr. Hayes and her team had successfully infiltrated the heart of the Empire's fleet. As they set the signal jamming device into position, they realized how close they were to the center of the Empire's operation. The tension was unbearable. One wrong move, and they would be discovered. "Ready," Dr. Hayes whispered. "Let's do this." The device activated, And for the first time, the Empire's communications were completely scrambled. Their commanders were unable to issue orders, and their soldiers, caught in the confusion, began to retreat. The humans had done it. They had successfully disrupted the Empire's coordination, throwing their invasion forces into disarray. As Foster watched the Empire's forces retreat, he couldn't help but smile. "We've got them on the run," he said. "This is the beginning of the end." Hope had finally returned to Earth. The humans had taken the fight to the Empire, and for the first time, the invaders were the ones on the defensive. The war was far from over, but the Empire's arrogance had been shattered, and Earth had proven that they would never back down. The momentum had shifted. Earth's forces were no longer just surviving. They were beginning to win. The Empire, once so sure of their success, was now facing an enemy that refused to be defeated. But the Galactic Empire was not a force that would back down easily. They had their pride, their resources, and their technology. And now, it was time for them to strike back. After the success of the convoy ambush and the signal jamming operation, Earth's resistance forces were emboldened. They had taken the fight to the Empire in ways that no one had expected, and the results were undeniable. The Empire's forces had retreated in confusion, and their supply lines had been crippled. But they were not finished. Not by a long shot. The Empire quickly regrouped, pulling in reinforcements from their other colonies and calling upon their most advanced weapons. They were coming for Earth, and they were determined to crush humanity once and for all. But they still underestimated the one thing that had been their downfall from the beginning: the human spirit. In the weeks following the Empire's retreat, Earth's resistance was on high alert. They knew the Empire would strike back, but no one was sure when or where. The question on everyone's mind was simple: how long could humanity hold out before the Empire's overwhelming power finally broke them? Captain James Foster, as always, was ready. The victory at the convoy had brought his troops closer together, and they were more determined than ever. But Foster knew that the Empire was not going to make the same mistakes again. They would come prepared, and they would come hard. "They're planning something big," Foster said as he reviewed the intelligence reports. "We need to be ready for their next move. We can't afford to be caught off guard." But Foster wasn't the only one preparing for the inevitable counteroffensive. Dr. Emily Hayes and her team were working around the clock to refine the signal jamming technology. The previous success had shown just how effective their strategy could be, but they needed to improve it. If they could disrupt the Empire's communications across even larger areas, it might give them the edge they needed to stay one step ahead. The pressure was mounting. The resistance fighters knew that they had to keep pushing, but every victory brought the risk of a bigger retaliation. The Empire's strike was coming. It was just a matter of time. And then it came. A massive fleet of Empire warships appeared at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, their sleek, dark shapes blocking out the stars. This was no small invasion force. The Empire had sent their full might to crush humanity once and for all. With superior numbers, advanced weaponry, and a clear mission to annihilate Earth's resistance, the odds seemed impossible. But the humans were not intimidated. "Prepare for battle," Foster shouted over the comms to his team. "This is it. The Empire thinks they can end this in one blow. We have to prove them wrong." In the skies above Earth, the Empire's warships began to deploy their forces. Hundreds of smaller dropships descended to Earth's surface, each carrying squads of elite soldiers. The Resistance had expected this, and they had prepared. Every major city was fortified. Every Resistance fighter was in position, ready to defend their homes, their families, their planet. As the dropships landed and the Empire's forces disembarked, they were met with a surprise. The humans had set traps, hidden explosives, makeshift barricades, and well-placed sniper positions. The first wave of Empire soldiers was caught in the chaos. The humans knew their survival depended on holding the line, and they fought with everything they had. The battle raged in the streets, in the forests, in the fields. It wasn't a war of technology anymore. It was a war of will. Dr. Hayes had positioned the newly upgraded signal jamming device in one of Earth's largest cities, hidden within the crumbling infrastructure. It was the perfect location, far enough away from the main conflict to remain undetected, but close enough to affect the Empire's command systems. The device was set to disrupt the Empire's fleet-wide communications, cutting them off from their command. If successful, the Empire's fleet would descend into chaos. "We're ready," Dr. Hayes said, her voice tense with anticipation. "If we can hit them now, we can stop their coordination before it's too late." As the battle unfolded, the humans held their ground. The Empire's forces were stronger, but they lacked the unity and adaptability that Earth's resistance possessed. Every time the Empire thought they had a breakthrough, the humans countered with a new tactic, a new surprise. The Empire's soldiers were disciplined, but they were starting to show signs of frustration. Then, at the height of the battle, Dr. Hayes activated the signal jamming device. A wave of disruption spread across the battlefield. The Empire's communications went silent. Commanders were no longer able to issue orders. Their fleets were in disarray, unable to coordinate with one another. Their soldiers, caught in confusion, began to falter. Foster saw the opportunity. He immediately ordered his team to press the attack. "We've got them on the ropes. Push forward, now." The humans, emboldened by the disruption, fought with renewed strength. They took advantage of the Empire's disarray, striking at weak points in their lines. The Empire's soldiers, once so confident, now found themselves outwitted and outpaced by the humans they had once dismissed as weak. The tide was turning. The Empire's once unassailable grip on Earth was slipping, and they were being forced to retreat. But this was only a temporary victory. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Empire still had vast resources and fleets waiting in the wings, ready to strike again. "We've won today," Foster said, as he watched the Empire's forces retreat into the sky. "But we can't let our guard down. This isn't over." And as the human resistance prepared for the next wave, one thing became clear: Earth was not done fighting. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they would have to face the consequences. The struggle was far from finished, but Earth's spirit remained unbroken. The sound of war was everywhere. The sky above Earth had turned into a battleground, filled with the Empire's warships and human fighter jets. Ground combat continued fiercely, cities were in ruins, and every corner of Earth was a front in the struggle for survival. The Empire's forces had regrouped and returned with even more firepower, but humanity's resistance had only grown stronger. They had learned how to fight back, and against all odds, they had pushed the invaders to the brink of retreat. Captain James Foster and his team stood in the command room, looking over the latest reports. The Empire was back with an even larger fleet, and this time, they were prepared to finish what they had started. The humans had won several key battles, but Earth was still at risk. It was clear now. The final showdown was coming. The Empire's leaders were no longer treating this war as a minor conflict. They were throwing everything they had at Earth. "We've got one shot at this," Foster said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We need to hit them hard and fast. This is the last chance we'll get before they overwhelm us." His eyes scanned the faces of his team. They had been through so much already, but this was different. The battle they were about to face would decide the future of humanity. If they lost, Earth would be under the control of the Empire forever. If they succeeded, they could finally end this war on their terms. Dr. Emily Hayes and her team had been working tirelessly on their next weapon. They had developed a new device, more powerful than the signal jammer, one that could disrupt the Empire's entire fleet's guidance systems. This would make their advanced ships and weaponry useless, turning their own technology against them. It was a risky move, but it was their best shot at weakening the Empire's forces once and for all. The plan was simple: deploy the new device in the heart of the Empire's fleet, deep within their command structure. Once activated, It would disable their ships, making them sitting targets for the human forces. The timing had to be perfect. If they could disable the Empire's ships at the right moment, they could push the invaders back for good. But getting close to the fleet was not going to be easy. The Empire had learned from their previous mistakes, and their defenses were now stronger than ever. The resistance forces would have to launch a bold, all-out assault on the Empire's primary fleet, drawing their attention away from the real objective, the device. Foster knew that this would be their most dangerous mission yet. As Foster and his team prepared for the assault, the human soldiers below them were gearing up for what they knew would be a battle like no other. The resistance had gathered everything they could, small but powerful forces, homemade weapons, and most importantly, an unyielding determination to protect their world. "We may be outnumbered, but we've got something they don't," Foster said to his team. "We've got heart, we've got courage, and we've got each other." With that, the team set out. They had already infiltrated the Empire's outer defenses once, but this time, the mission was more dangerous. The Empire's forces were waiting for them, and they wouldn't be caught off guard again. But Foster knew they had to try. Earth's survival depended on it. Meanwhile, Dr. Hayes and her team had successfully placed the device aboard one of the Empire's flagship command ships. It was a high-risk mission that required them to blend in with the Empire's troops, using every trick they knew to avoid detection. They had made it this far, and now the device was in place. It was up to the humans to create a diversion to give them enough time to activate it. The plan was unfolding. Foster's team led a coordinated assault on the Empire's outer defenses, drawing attention away from Dr. Hayes and her team. Explosions lit up the sky as fighter jets soared through the air, and ground troops clashed in the streets. The Empire's forces, though numerous, were disoriented by the unexpected attack. It was exactly what the humans needed: chaos. Back on the flagship, Dr. Hayes moved quickly. The Empire's command ship was a massive structure, and activating the device would require getting to the core control room. Time was running out. She had to hurry. As she and her team navigated through the labyrinth of corridors, they encountered several Empire soldiers. But they managed to stay hidden, using their knowledge of the ship's layout to avoid detection. Finally, they reached the control room. The tension was unbearable. Dr. Hayes activated the device, and with a hum of energy, the signal began to spread. The Empire's ship started to shake as its systems were scrambled. The crew on board looked confused, scrambling to regain control. The humans had done it. They had disabled the Empire's flagship. At that exact moment, Foster's team made their move. With the Empire's flagship in disarray, the human fighters launched their final assault on the remaining Empire forces. The massive fleet of warships, once so confident in their strength, now found themselves vulnerable. The Empire's ships were unable to respond effectively, and the humans took full advantage of the opening. Foster's voice came over the comms, filled with determination. "Now's our chance. We push forward." The final battle was brutal. It was a fight for Earth's survival, for the future of humanity. But this time, the humans had the advantage. The Empire's fleet, now crippled, was retreating, unable to coordinate an effective defense. The resistance pressed forward with everything they had, pushing the invaders back, step by step. As the battle raged, Earth's forces held their ground. The tide of war had turned. For the first time, it was the Empire that was on the defensive. And with every passing moment, the humans moved closer to victory. The war was not over, but this was the beginning of the end. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The humans had proven that they would never stop fighting for their home. And with the final blow about to land, the question no longer was if they would win, but how soon. The smoke and dust of battle hung thick in the air as the last remnants of the Empire's forces began to retreat. The skies, once filled with the towering shadows of warships, were now quiet. Earth's resistance fighters, battered but unbroken, had done what once seemed impossible. They had pushed back the might of the Galactic Empire. Captain James Foster stood on a rooftop, overlooking the city below. The fires from the battle still smoldered in the distance, but the sounds of gunfire and explosions had faded into an eerie silence. It was over. The Empire had been defeated, at least for now. Foster took a deep breath and allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They had fought for so long with so much at stake, and now humanity stood victorious. But the victory was bittersweet. While they had won the battle, the cost had been high. Many brave souls had lost their lives fighting for Earth's freedom. Foster thought of the soldiers who had fallen, of the families who had been torn apart. Their sacrifices would never be forgotten, and he promised himself that their memories would live on in the future they had won. Captain Foster. A voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Dr. Emily Hayes, her face marked with exhaustion, but also a look of pride. We did it. The Empire's gone, at least for now. We've crippled their fleet and their command structure. They won't be able to recover from this. Foster nodded, but his mind was already turning to what came next. What about the survivors? He asked, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. The Empire isn't just going to disappear. We need to make sure they can't regroup. We've got a plan, Dr. Hayes replied. The signal jammer worked, and with their command structure broken, they can't communicate with their other colonies. We've also sent out messages to other resistance groups. If we can reach out to the galaxy, we'll rally every faction that wants to see the Empire fall. Foster's eyes brightened at the mention of hope for the galaxy. Then let's make sure they know we're ready for whatever comes next. We'll fight anyone who tries to threaten our home again. The two of them walked together toward the command center, where a group of officers and soldiers were already working on plans for the future. Earth had won a great victory, but now they had to ensure that the Empire could never return. The fight wasn't over. They still had to rebuild, to forge alliances, and to prepare for the new world that lay ahead. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about shaping the future. The humans had learned something vital in this war. They could stand against the most powerful forces in the galaxy and win. It was time to take that knowledge and use it to create a new era, one where humanity would no longer be pushed around by those who saw them as weak or insignificant. Foster knew the road ahead would be difficult. The Galactic Empire had been a force of unimaginable power, and their reach stretched far across the stars. But now, Earth had the upper hand. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was weakening, and humanity's strength was no longer a secret. The war's over, Foster said as he addressed his team, his voice carrying across the room. But this is just the beginning of a new chapter. We've proven that we're not just survivors. We're warriors. We've shown the galaxy that humans will fight for their freedom, for their families, for their home. No one will ever look at us the same way again. The room erupted into cheers. It was a moment of triumph, but it was also a reminder of how much they had sacrificed. The Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve, but the universe was now seeing the strength of the human spirit. No longer would Earth be treated as a small, insignificant world. The galaxy would have to reckon with them. We've got allies across the stars who want to see the Empire fall, Dr. Hayes continued. Now we need to focus on building those alliances. Together, we can make sure no one will ever threaten Earth again. Foster looked at the faces of the men and women around him. They were tired, some wounded, but they were standing tall. They had faced the impossible and come out on top. And now, as they looked to the stars, they knew they had a purpose greater than survival. They had a future to build. The war with the Galactic Empire might have ended, but a new era of human exploration and influence was just beginning. Foster knew that Earth would be at the forefront of it. They would stand as protectors of their world, and with time, allies to the countless civilizations that had suffered under the Empire's rule. The battle had been hard, and the scars of war would take time to heal. But the humans had learned something important. No matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how dark the days, humanity would always fight. And in the end, humanity would always win. As Foster stood with his team, looking out at the horizon, He felt a sense of pride and hope for the future. The struggle had been long, but now Earth was free. The universe was vast, and humanity's journey had only just begun. The stars were no longer out of reach. They were waiting for Earth to make its mark on them. And so, with the last of the Empire's forces driven back, the humans looked to the future with hope in their hearts. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. The galaxy would never forget the day when humanity stood up and said, "We warned them to run," and we meant it.